Buckeye fans, or just college football fans in general, or just sports fans in general, this is probably the first time you're seeing this channel do this type of content, which is sports reaction, sports breakdown, sports news stuff. And I say that because the last time that I did one of these was like 8 months ago in September, before I even had 300 subscribers. So if you're seeing this type of content on this channel for the first time, stick around, as I'm going to be breaking down some things that I find pretty interesting going on in the college football landscape right now. Starting out, Ohio State versus Texas was announced as the week 1 game. We knew this a while ago, and the thing that made everyone mad was, hey, it's a noon game. And I get it, my audience, you guys might actually not have an issue with this, as I think it caters to a lot of the older audience. A lot of people like to get the game done at noon. They don't want to have to stay up till 11:30 to watch a game. Also, it doesn't compete with ESPN's main time slot of having their games at 7:30 on ABC, which I totally get. But as for the students there, and I've got a friend at Ohio State right now, and I can tell you from the pulse of that stadium, we want night games. A lot of people going through the subreddit of Ohio State want night games as well. It obviously works for people with different schedules. If you live in Hawaii, you're like, oh, I like my game at this time. Or if you live in Europe, you like it at this time. Me, living on the East Coast, I like my games at night. No matter what time I have to work, even if it's on a Saturday, I don't care. I want a night game at home, especially week 1 against Texas feels like the perfect opportunity to do this. Now, a couple things why they did not do this. Well, Big Noon Kickoff exists, and I believe I saw it's the 23rd time. It's either the 23rd time or they've already had 23 games on Big Noon Kickoff, like in that time slot for Ohio State, which is the most out of any other team by a wide margin. I think Penn State and maybe Michigan were the other 2 teams that were close, and it really wasn't comparable. Now, why is this? Ohio State always draws the biggest numbers. You Buckeye fans know that. We got a big audience all around the place. So obviously what they're going to try to do is put the game at noon, where they're not competing against another prime time slot of a different network. It feels like CBS at 3:30 used to have the best SEC game, which now has transitioned to 7:30 at night on ABC. East times I'm talking. I feel like Buckeye fans were kind of upset last year with all the noon games. It felt like there were 6 or 7 noon games in a row, surrounded by a couple of, oh, they play Michigan State at night on Peacock, so how are we going to watch that? Or, oh, they play, I don't even know who else they played at 3:30. Indiana was a noon game, Penn State was a noon game, and both those were top 5 matchups, correct me if I'm wrong, which feels weird that both those games come at noon, when it felt like, hey, maybe put the game at 7:30 at night. And I know Joel Klatt has gone on his podcast and talked about it, like, hey, we don't make the decisions, the ratings are the ratings, we go on at 12, that's Big Noon Kickoff, that's the time slot. But it's not like they haven't done 3:30 games in the past. So here's where the interesting stuff started to happen. Some things happened following this announcement of the game being at noon that kind of was weird. So for one, Ohio State wanted to change it. They said, hey, Texas, let's play the game the night after, which would be August 31st, I believe, or is that September 1st? I don't know how many days are in August. The game is on August 30th right now. Whatever that Sunday is after, they were going to put that game at night in its own slot, and Texas said no. Fox was okay with it. Texas said no. Fox being okay with it makes me think 2 things. One, they really don't want to compete with ESPN for that time slot at night, because if I remember correctly, ESPN always gets 7:30 p.m. at night on ABC or ESPN, and then Monday on week 1, they also get a night game that's also on ESPN. That's usually like, I don't know, Clemson and Pitt or somebody like that. Just a good game. I think it was USC and LSU last year. So Fox wanting to do this makes me think they really don't want to compete with ABC and ESPN for that night primetime slot. However, the fact that they were willing to do it makes me think maybe, just maybe, they're like, hey, you know what? That game was really cool against Tennessee last year, where Ohio State, coming off that bad loss against Michigan, was like, oh, we're going to throttle Tennessee at home at night. And the environment was electric. I don't recall seeing another game that quite looked like that at night for Ohio State in the last couple of years, because it felt like all the big games that they've had against Penn State and whatnot have been throughout the day. The last night Penn State game I remember was 2018, that Dwayne Haskins game where they came back from 13 or 14 down to win. So Fox not wanting to compete with ESPN's time slot really makes me think that these big noon games will continue to happen. Even though Fox still has games at night, they still play games at night, whether it's a Pac-12 game or something like that. They still play these games at night, and it feels like Ohio State should probably get a couple more of them. Now, something else that happened, Ohio, the governor of Ohio, I think it was the governor, I don't live in Ohio, so correct me if I'm wrong, they tried to pass a law. I don't do politics, so I don't know if this is exactly how it works, but they tried to pass a law saying that Ohio State will no longer be allowed to play noon games against state universities, I think was the wording for the law. And basically what that means is, hey, you play Michigan State, you play Northwestern, you play like any big team, the game will not be allowed at noon except for the Michigan game. And obviously that could be wrong. It could be maybe like, hey, only like the Power 4. It does feel like, or maybe it's just on Fox. But all I know is that there was a law that was going to be passed, and I don't know if it's gotten passed yet, but that's just something to keep your eye on maybe in the next couple years, of the actual lawmakers in Ohio trying to get something done to maybe say, hey, let's get a couple more night games. I don't think it has to go to that extent, because that feels a little extra to where, hey, every game's going to be at night now. Because I know, like, our Buckeyes, I want to see them play all throughout the year. Like, I don't want to see 12 noon games games. I don't want to see 12 night games. I want to see 4 noon games, 4 3:30 games, 4 night games, whatever the math is. Just give me some good primetime night games, and I think that's what all of our fans want. We want to see Ohio State versus Penn State at 8 o'clock, not at the crack of noon. And also, a big part of this is the crowd factor. You see what they're like for the Michigan game. The people that go to the game are like, oh, this crowd is not up. Or the Indiana game, or that Nebraska game. The Nebraska game was a great example. It was either the week after the Oregon game, I believe, where it's like, okay, Ohio State's going to come out and pummel a team. They just had this heartbreaker against Oregon. They're for sure going to come out and pummel them, and they really didn't. They beat them by 3 or 4. I think it was one of those like 21-17 type games, and it just felt like the crowd was never really into the game, and you could really see it on the TV. And it's like, hey, we don't want to do this at noon. All right, the last game, like Oregon gets their night game, and it's wonderful. It started out daylight in that game with the sun setting, and then it finished at night. It was beautiful. That Oregon game was chef's kiss. So obviously the fans at Ohio State have their own beliefs, their own opinions. I believe that they'd want more night games, and I know that there's a lot of part of this audience that probably is fine with the noon games. So yes, let me know what you think, if there should be some sort of restriction for how many noon games Ohio State's allowed to play, or what you want to see. If you're okay with the noon games, please let me know. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts, because it seems like everybody on the internet is just hating and is always angry all the time. Speaking of college football, the news that we got a couple weeks ago was that the format of the playoff is changing. So it's still a 12-team format for now, and that's been discussed as to be raised to a 16-team, but for now it's still going to be a 12-team up until the end of this year, I believe. However, what changed? The issue with last year, you can go back and be like, what was wrong with last year's playoff? I got it. Boise State was playing on week 2, and they kind of got shellacked by Penn State. And, the seeding was weird, right? Like, it was, okay, Clemson got this automatic bid at 12, which that really didn't get addressed. But, like, hold on a second. Arizona State played in the Big 12, and they got the 3 seed, even though they held their own against Texas. It was, like, really felt like a Texas or a Notre Dame or Ohio State probably deserved that bye when you look at the end of the playoffs, how it turned out. So what did they do? They got in a room and said, okay, no more automatic buys. No more conference championship automatic buys. So what this means coming into next year is that just because you win your ACC conference with 3 losses, I'm looking at you, Clemson, doesn't mean you get a top 4 spot. Now, they didn't get the top 4 spot last year because it was so buns at the bottom part where it was Boise State or Clemson or somebody. It was weird, right? Instead, it goes to the teams that, hey, you play in a tougher conference, you probably deserve the buy over another team. And who does this benefit? It benefits the Big Ten and the SEC for now. Those are the 2 premier conferences in college football, with what I think is probably Big 12 as the third to that, and then ACC fourth as out of the Power 4. So why does this impact the Big Ten and the SEC the most? The loser of the conference championship game basically is guaranteed a bye now. Now, I don't know how that math works, because when we were doing East versus West divisions, it was kind of screwy. But now if we look at it, the 2 best teams are always going to be playing in the conference championship. And odds are the loser, let's just say it's like 2 years ago, where number 1 Georgia loses to Alabama, who was 4 or 5 at the time. Bama, of course, makes the playoff. Georgia doesn't fall out entirely. Georgia wouldn't even miss a bye in this case. Georgia probably only drops to 3 or 4, still gets the bye. The reason I think this is good is because there's no reason why Oregon going into last year. Can you imagine if Oregon goes 12-0 after beating Ohio State and all the other teams they played? I think they beat Michigan by 21 points. Goes into that conference championship game, and let's just flip that score. They lose to Penn State by 8. So now Penn State is, I believe they were 11-1 because they made that conference championship over Ohio State. They're 11-1. They win that game, they're 12-1. They're probably the 1 or 2 seed. Oregon now is also 12-1 with wins over Ohio State and Michigan and some other teams, and they lose out on a bye because they lose a conference championship game that they participated in. Meanwhile, these other teams like maybe Notre Dame, who don't participate in a conference championship, get a bye. And instead, a team like Boise State, who beats, UNLV in their conference championship, gets the bye. When Boise State, I don't think they lost a game all year, but they didn't really, they lost to Oregon. Other than that, they didn't really play anyone. And no offense to the Mountain West or whatever conference they play in, but that's not as big of a competition as what Oregon had to go through. It's just more fair because the best teams are playing against the best teams now, with these 25-team conferences being the Big Ten and the SEC, where I think both Greg Sankey and the commissioner of the Big Ten are both going to be like, okay, this is at least more favorable for our teams. We're going to have more buys for our teams, which means more of our teams are advancing into the second round anyway. It's good for the bodies of these athletes hitting up against each other every week, and it should be good for our team, Ohio State. Let's just say our Buckeyes go 11-1 with a loss at home to Penn State. Penn State, also 11-1, end up meeting each other in the conference championship, I don't know, let's just say the loser of that game should probably still get a bye. They wouldn't have gotten a bye in the last case, they would in this probably, depending on how the rankings go. To make it pretty open and shut, instead of automatically giving byes to these conference champions, it's going to be ranked just like it was the 14 playoff, even though I'm sure conference championship will still be weighted in a way when those actually go head to head. It's going to be more thrown off to just the best teams get the byes. Finally, if you're wondering what would this have looked like last year, I believe Ohio State would have still had a home playoff game against Arizona State as opposed to Tennessee. Now, while the game doesn't look as good on paper as Tennessee, because we all think Tennessee is the best from the SEC, it probably would have been an easier game for Ohio State. So it just rewards the higher ranked teams throughout the year. Still no reseeding yet, that's for a different year. They also had talks of doing a 5+11 model. Haven't looked too much into that, but I think it has to do with when they expand to 16 teams here in a couple years, which is just inevitable it seems. They wanted to do a 5+11 format, which somehow is going to guarantee maybe 5 conference champions plus 11 other teams. I don't really know how that math adds up, if it's 5 byes or whatever. Didn't look that much into that. That's a video for another time. Let me know down below if you agree with the idea that conference champions should not be given an automatic bye anymore, and instead getting the second best SEC and the second best Big Ten team that bye instead. Shifting away from the college football landscape, this is what I did last year that got a good number of views on the channel, so I'm going to continue talking about this because I love video games and I love college football. So combining the two, College Football 26 has been announced for another year. Last year, in case you're unfamiliar, College Football 25 came out. For the first time in 10 or 11 years, we got a college football based video game made by EA. The 3 cover athletes last year were Quinn Ewers, Donovan Edwards, and Travis Hunter. This year, our boy Jeremiah Smith gets on the cover, and it was Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, which was actually coincidental because the day before I had made a YouTube short that was like, who's better, Ryan Williams or Jeremiah Smith? And a lot of you guys obviously said Jeremiah Smith, but we got some Ryan Williams because people from the SEC also watch this channel. So both the 19 and the 18-year-old respectively, Jeremiah Smith and Ryan Williams, make it on the cover. Both guys had interviews with YouTubers. You can look that up if you want. They were both pretty chill about it, but they both were really excited. And what's cool is both these guys grew up in a time same as me. I'm 22. These kids are younger than me, which is crazy now because I still think I'm younger than a lot of people that watch his channel. Both guys were really excited to be on the cover, real humble about it, both really good guys, and it's the first time ever that an Ohio State guy has gotten on the cover. Now that's just the standard cover, and if you do know anything about college football, you know there's a standard version and a deluxe version if you want to buy it in the store. Now I usually get my games digital on the new Xbox, so it doesn't really matter to me what cover I get because I don't have the physical disc. But if you're interested in what the deluxe copy is, they actually have like Kirby Smart, Ryan Day, Caleb Downs, all these other players. There's a huge picture that I'll put up on the screen of who they put in the game. There's Bryce Underwood, there's Garrett Nussmeier, there's DJ Lagway, there's a bunch of other players. I know I said Caleb Downs already, but Sam Levitt from Arizona State got on the cover, Nick Singleton from Penn State, James Franklin, Dan Lanning, all these coaches are on, which sparks another thing that they leaked. Coaches, real coaches are going to be in College Football 26, which was not a thing last year. It was like Dan Smith or some coach with the name of that. Kyle Dillingham, I think that's the guy's name for Arizona State. I don't know. I haven't looked at college football coaches in a while. Kirby Smart, Dan Lanning, Ryan Day, James Franklin all made appearances at the guest shoot that they did, meaning that coaches are going to be officially face scanned into the game. It's great. It's more immersive. It's just some addition that they add that people are like, hey, why can't we get real coaches in the game? We had it 11 years ago. Let's get it now. I did think that they were going to do some sort of like Nick Saban type deluxe cover since he's officially out of the game. Maybe a Lee Corso one because Lee Corso was retiring IRL. Another thing they added, which was not in the game last year, was mascots. Now, mascot mode, I don't know if that's confirmed yet, but I'm guessing that having all the mascots mean that they're going to have the mascot mode back. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's totally fine. Bear with me. The mascot mode is like a really easy, fun game mode where they make all these mascots of the team you're playing as. So if you're playing as Ohio State, you have 11 Brutuses on offense and 11 Brutuses on defense, and you play against the Wolverines. So you play against like a big Wolverine and like everyone's really overpowered. You can do like spins, hurdles, crazy moves like that. It was just really fun in an arcade mode for you to play back 10, 11 years ago. Still, that is unconfirmed if that's coming back or not, but I'm assuming with the addition of mascots, maybe they can make this happen. Now, before I get out of this topic, there's one thing that I was thinking about that I really want added in College Football 26 coming up this year. Now, last year I did videos on top 5 things I want in College Football 25 and whatever it is in there, and now I want to look forward to College Football 26 because there are some things that I'm like, you know what, we can add this to the game. The thing that I'm most excited for, or at least most asking for, is that they just fine-tune the Road to Glory game. The Dynasty mode as itself is pretty good. I'll say compared to 11 years ago, it's only 30 years long, which is different than the 80 I think they give you. That's whatever. I don't think anyone's playing 30-year Dynasties anyway, and if you are, congrats, maybe go outside. The Road to Glory mode is where you can create a player, you can make it yourself, be a quarterback or a running back or a wide receiver or a linebacker or a DB, and the issue with this is that the playing time is kind of really off. Like even if you're a starter, you won't really see the field that much. It's really weird and wacky, and the logic of the game still hasn't been fine-tuned. needs another year. Hopefully they can figure that out. Hopefully maybe they can add a couple new positions. Hey man, let me be a tight end. Let me be an offensive lineman. I don't know why they restrict it anyway. With that being said, we'll see what they do with this coming year. Game comes out July 10th for the standard edition. And as you know, if you know, 3 days early if you buy the deluxe edition. It's an extra $30-$40 unless you're buying on EA Play, which I will make another video about, maybe a little way to get it cheaper like they did last year. So stay tuned for that. But let me know down below what you think should be the thing that they add to College Football 26 if that's your thing. Lastly, before we get out of here, I wanted to change the tone to a little bit of a more serious nature. Things that should be discussed on this channel: all Ohio State players, past and present, whether or not you're on the team, whether or not you transferred. And I want to talk about the Julian Fleming situation. If you did not see, a couple days ago, Julian Fleming got in a pretty bad ATV accident with his girlfriend. They hit a deer late at night, it looked like, and his girlfriend Alyssa Boyd did unfortunately pass away. Thoughts obviously out to Julian Fleming. He was such a nice guy when I met him, which I'll tell that story in a minute. The thing I really want to touch on: make sure you hug a loved one. It's never news that you want to see, and even though Julian Fleming did transfer from Ohio State to Penn State, he never lost any love in my heart. And I know he was trying out to be a Green Bay Packer on the practice squad, and unfortunately, just when something like that happens, I'm sure football is the last thing on his mind. With that being said, thoughts and prayers with Julian Fleming. Hopefully everything with him and his family ends up okay. I'm sure both Fleming and Alyssa Boyd's family are mourning this together as well. The last thing on Fleming's mind is probably football right now. He was injured pretty badly. I have no idea the timetable on it. The reports of the story really did kind of stop 3 days ago, and so still no news. Hopefully he's okay. Hopefully he gets out all right and his injuries heal. But ATV accidents, never good. Four-wheelers can be dangerous, so please stay safe if you're going to indulge in that type of activity. Now, I know I said it, the story of me meeting Fleming, it's really nothing big. A couple years ago, I was a young kid, 4 or 5 years ago, so I was 17. Fleming's, I think, 1 or 2 years older than me. And Fleming was a freshman at Ohio State. I was trying to sneak into the Woody. It was like my first ever second game back at Ohio State that I'd been to. And it wasn't really trying to sneak in, just me trying to get in there and, you know, see all the trophies and all that things. And for me, I never really had like an up close experience with an athlete at that age. I think I was 16 or 17 at the time. And we try to walk to the Woody, and there's a guy wearing his backpack with the number 4 on. I'm looking at my dad like, that's Julian Fleming. Like, because I obviously knew every player on the team at the time. I was diehard. Like, I knew the 5th string wide receivers. And my uncle goes up and says, "Hey, sir, can you let us in the building? We're trying to go see." And Fleming, like, real nicely, no, I can't let you in there. I did end up getting in the Woody a couple years after that, thanks to my cousin who worked there. But hopefully everything's okay with Julian Fleming and his family. I know that this is a terrible thing that happens to him, and it should really never be discussed in the same breath as football. Ohio State fans were really receptive of him, and obviously social media, there's a lot of people that are negative on there, but it seems like a lot of the Buckeye community came together to really show how much they appreciated Julian and what he did for the team. With that being said, this is the first time in a while I've tried one of these videos to break down what's going on in the college football sports. I really just focused on Ohio State content today, so let me know if that's something you want to see more of. I'm down to talk about other teams, other sports. I've done it on this channel before, but I'm really looking forward to start to get more interactive with the community that we've built here at the Bam Bam Cam channel, and hopefully you enjoy this video. You like, subscribe, share with a friend, all that stuff. And I really want to see some positive feedback on this video so that I can keep doing stuff like this. Go Bucks, as always. I love college football. I'll never stop talking about Ohio State, no matter how much it annoys my friends. But with that being said, y'all have a great day. Peace.